Hey, we are talking about Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 8, Mercy. We are going to do a spoiler free review of the episode, and then we are going to get into a spoiler breakdown of the episode starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Nathan.
And I'm Sandra.
So, the spoiler free log line for this episode is with time running out before the launch of the Europa Mission, Picard and Guinan must free themselves from from FBI custody. Seven and Raffi come face to face with Jurati in the horror of what she's become. This is written by Cindy Appel and Kirsten Beyer and directed by Joe Menendez. Conjure, what did you think of this episode?
I actually enjoyed this one much more than last week. A lot happened. The pace was a lot faster. With the search for Jurati, we go back to the story between Dr. Soong and his daughter Corey, and sort of see that explode. So the plot it's getting more interesting this week. Yeah, kind of much more fast paced episode, I think, than last week. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I like the episode too. It's still a middle of a road episode for me. I think I'd give it like a 7. Just because the other middle of the road episodes that I had real issues with, there were people that weren't doing anything, and everyone was doing something this week. But at this point, we have 2 episodes left for the end of the season, and I have to start more and more grading these episodes on whether or not they actually are tying up loose ends, as opposed to like doing weird detours. And a lot of this episode was a weird detour with the FBI detention. It's not really answering any questions about about the season, which is concerning to me. But as a one-off story, that's why I have to give it a 7. It was fine. It was good. I appreciated where they went with the FBI agent. The stuff that they did with Jurati was also good. The stuff that they did with Rios is questionable. We can talk about that when we get into the spoiler breakdown. The Soong and Corey stuff was interesting. I'm interested to see where that goes. Not just with Soong, but also with Corey. But yeah, it was a good episode. It wasn't a great episode because, like I said, I don't know how some of these things are contributing to the end of the overall plot of the season. It seems like a detour a little bit. Like some of this stuff seems like a detour, especially what Rios is doing and what happened to Picard and Guinan. If you saw the end of the last episode, what happened, where they were hauled off to. It seems similar to what they did earlier in the season when they hauled off Rios to ICE detention and didn't really say anything didn't have any larger thoughts about ICE detention. Besides, it's bad. But I don't know. It's not a terrible episode, but like for a middle, it's one of the higher middle of the road episodes that they've had this season. But I'm concerned because we have like 2 more episodes left, and there's a lot to tie up. There's a lot of things that we don't know. So, although there were some answers there were some answers that, and we probably get into spoilers when we talk about some answers related to why. Well, there's some hints related to why things were screwed up at the very beginning in the first episode. Some hints. We're gonna have to do some wild speculation based on the hints in this episode. So yeah, Any other thoughts before we move on to some spoiler? Because there's like I keep trying to like this one because they did reveal some things. It definitely revealed more than they did in the last episode. Talking about this episode really requires like delving into the spoiler territory.
Yeah, I think we could just get into
Yeah.
spoiler territory,
All
make
right.
it easier to
So
talk about.
spoilers ahead. I will
There's
say
a
if you're
lot.
enjoying the commentary and the conversation, please join the conversation by commenting down below. I can speak English. um, like, like and subscribe to help us out. We really appreciate it. And with that, spoilers ahead. All right. So, what do you want to talk about first with this episode?
Where should we pick up? I guess with the Picard and Guinan
Mm-hmm.
storyline, because we start.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my dog is hyper right now, but we sort of start with you see a kid wandering through the woods, right? As the opening scene, and you don't quite figure out how it connects until much later on in the episode. So I thought that was like a nice. I mean, it was confusing for a little bit. Like, what is this now, right? Is it Picard again? But it's not. But you realize that it's the FBI agent who took them into custody, and it sort of gave me. It had a little bit of feeling like X-Files,
Yeah.
right? This agent who wanted to believe, or who did believe, and who did actually have a genuine experience with aliens that he misinterpreted, right?
Perception,
and that sort of colored his or biased his perception for a long time, which I thought was like unfortunate, right? Because he was never in actual danger. They weren't going to harm him, and they would have had a. So what happens is he happens upon two Vulcans in a forest, and the forest is frightened, right? Because he can tell that they're not.
Well, he's also they're also doing weird weird science stuff that is impossible on the planet back in the. This would be in the. I mean, he's it's 2024 for him, so this would have been like the 70s or the 70s for him. So because he looks like an old.
But regardless, if you come up again as a kid, two strangers in the woods, you should probably run, regardless of what they're human or not.
So
right?
this opening was interesting, and then we go to the interrogation of them. So when I saw the clips of this, I was more critical of this episode than I ended up being after I watched the episode. So this guy's obviously working off the books. They think the FBI, he's an FBI agent, but it seems like they think that he's a crank, basically. So they have him in a basement. They have them in a basement, being interrogated together. Because part of the reason that I thought this was ridiculous was because typically if it's an official thing, you don't interrogate people together. He also came in and he said this is an interrogation, this is an interview. So I guess he's interviewing them. So yeah, the scenes between him and Picard and Guinan are interesting, but this is also what I was talking about when I said this is a detour that has nothing to do whatsoever with the season. It's like a good one-off episode. It would be interesting. It would be interesting if it was like, it had nothing to do with it would be interesting if it was a one-off episode and we were just focusing on this guy who had an extraterrestrial experience. And I don't know, for some reason they were coming back and coming back to the past. Like they did in Star Trek Enterprise, they established that the Vulcans visited Earth a lot to do like survey missions and things like that. So this is in line with that canon. But again, I don't see how this plays into the It's like it's basically a waylay to stop us from getting to the end of the season. Like he gets interrogated for they get interrogated for a third of this episode, and then they end up exactly where they were at the beginning at the end of the last episode. It's basically just creating time, just spinning their wheels, sort of, and that's my issue with it.
It could be similar to what they do with the doctor Teresa, because she interacts with Rios and then we don't see her for an episode or so.
Maybe,
so maybe we still have 2
job.
episodes to go. Although now he's no longer an FBI agent, so he's lost, I think, whatever, or at least you would assume he would have lost whatever.
Yeah, because
not that he had much to begin with, because I think part of the reason he also had them together was he was a department of one, right? Like he doesn't have much pull or clout or say. Like nope, they don't.
Yeah,
believe,
he became an FBI agent, but it seems like his entire career he's been talking about extraterrestrials, and they think that he's a crank. So
exactly. So because he picked up 2 extraterrestrials who look pretty human. So. Who look human, right? Not even pretty human, right? You'd have to do a deep scan of Picard.
I don't even think you should do a deep scan of Picard to figure that out, because a couple episodes ago, he was in a clinic and she was doing medical procedures on him. So I don't think that even a deep scan would. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Because he noticed the booze from the IV, so he was hooked up to an IV drip.
So his body reacts the same way that a human body would react. They don't have the technology they don't have the technology to differentiate him from a regular human. The interrogation scenes were it's hard to talk about this stuff because this part of the episode, because this is a part of the episode that I liked, but it has nothing to do whatsoever with the rest of the season. It's if this guy comes back, maybe. But
what I did like was that Picard took the time to talk to him and find out why he was, because he, at first, my first thought was he's curious and he's excited about aliens, but then you realize no, he actually
it was
has
trauma.
very negative. Right. You're right. Trauma. And Picard kind of explains to him oh no, you actually did. They were Vulcans, and I guess what the Vulcan was gonna do was do a mind meld and I guess wipe his memory, but it looks like they got transported before anything.
I think the Vulcan thought that he did it,
happened.
but it didn't actually. I mean I think at this point in history, they are doing survey missions and they don't have a whole lot of interaction with humans, except for T'Pol's grandmother and her team, who were stranded for a few decades. They don't know how to do a mind meld on a human properly. So this guy tried and he failed. So yeah.
So, but then he was pretty once he understood, he was oh, okay, so that I thought that was just a nice moment, right? Because there are people who believe, right? A lot of us humans, I don't know, believe or hope that there's other life out there. But I guess we'll see where if he shows up, how he would be useful. Because I do get the sense based on the last part of the episode that they are going to need additional help in maintaining the ship or keeping the ship in their hands and figuring out what or how to get.
Well, they have to defend the ship from the Borg Queen, who wants to take it. They don't have transporters anymore, and because she took over the transporters, and we saw at the end of the episode, she also has a private army. See if I got the screenshots of that stuff.
Yeah.
She has a private army, Um, Courtesy of Dr.
Courtesy of
Soong.
doctors.
Yeah, he's
Probably some of the soldiers that he
maybe, but
experimented
he
on.
he they I think they hinted at, like, in either articles or that tribunal that he was in front of, that he worked with off the books, like, military stuff. So I guess this is how he knows these people.
Yeah,
And it's definitely not what they
yeah,
signed up for. Because they got she's going to turn them into to drones. Um, so yeah.
yeah.
Let me see if I can. So yeah. The
But Seven and Raffi realize that Jurati is still somewhere in there, right? Because the Borg Queen has an opportunity to kill Raffi. Because they do, they find her not very far from
mm-hmm,
the bar that she
right.
damaged last week. She hooked up with a patron,
Mm-hmm.
wound up killing him. The Seven sort of figures out. So I guess we realize that Seven, she obviously still has her knowledge
Of
of
how they operate. Yeah,
the
of how they
Borg,
operate.
but since her implants, right, and how they operate, since her implants aren't there, she can't. Um,
She
what's the
can't.
word?
She can't actually locate her. She can't actually
She
locate her.
can't
But
connect,
she can.
can't,
She has a
right,
sense of
locate her,
how how she thinks based upon her experience in the collective.
right?
But she can't. She doesn't have the hardware in her
Yes,
head anymore to actually just to pinpoint her location. Um,
yeah. So using just sort of that instinct, they realize that she's gonna need metals to
the
stabilize
nanoprobes. Yeah, yeah,
the nanoprobe.
yeah.
Yep. And that's what they sort of find her doing, is harvesting metals from batteries, getting stronger. But she beats them. So yeah, but that moment where she's like Seven is down for the count,
Mm-hmm.
and she's choking Raffi. Oh, but Jurati has some control, like at least enough to stop the Borg
I
Queen
will
from
say
killing
that
her. And
that is the
so
quickest I've seen a
I
Borg
guess
Queen move ever. A Borg anything move
yeah,
ever. So that's an interesting decision that they made to have her jump across all the cars in that very un-Borg like way.
yeah. Well, it's still like a very human body, right? There are no implants yet, or no devices really, which I think is, I guess, what makes the Borg so clunky and not
Right.
very efficient in how they move, right? And I guess they do generally, I guess, put a lot of more goes into their defenses just not being um, penetrable, right? Like you can't use a phase, or they
Yeah,
adapt that way, but
this is
they don't
true.
move
Yeah,
quickly
yeah.
because they don't
So
have
if
to
she
move
had actually tried
quickly,
to shoot
really.
her, if she had a bunch more implants, it wouldn't have been as effective, and then she would have adapted. So I think yeah, you're right. Within the context, she wouldn't have had much defense, so she had to move quickly to neutralize her before she shot her. Because if she shot her, she could actually get her. I don't understand why it took Raffi, a trained Starfleet officer, so long to shoot her. Maybe she was hesitating because it's Jurati. That's the only thing that makes sense whatsoever. Because
Yeah, because she
yeah,
still very much looks like Jurati, and I think they're still hoping that they can um save her. So yeah, I guess
maybe.
maybe
Because
they might
I
hesitate
mean,
the next time.
it's not like she was trying to vaporize her. She could have stunned her. But okay. Uh,
This is how you're gonna treat your
Yeah, I
friends.
mean,
Now you
like,
know
if
you're gonna
if my friend
done us real quick.
is going off in like a rabid state, yes, sedating the person is fine, so that we can figure out the situation. I'm not trying to hurt the person. We're trying to de-escalate the situation. This is fine. Stun is that I've seen it, we you both of us have watched a lot of Star Trek. Like, they've stunned like other Starfleet officers before when they've flown off the handle. So
true.
like,
Yeah.
it's fine. They're not. Yeah, she could have stunned her, but I think they wanted to show. So this episode is called Mercy, and I think it's the title is meant to refer to Jurati showing mercy, because actually after she does it, Seven and Raffi have a conversation about the Borg don't actually show mercy, and it also I guess it also has to do with the guy showing mercy and letting them go, the FBI agent. So yeah, the other weird thing. So actually, I have a screenshot of the conversation with the FBI agent. I mean, I have a screenshot of pretty much everything in the episode, but which is why it takes so long to actually cue something up. The other thing that they did that added to the canon is apparently Elnorians can project themselves into people's brains now. This is a new thing.
Yeah.
This is a new thing that they added to the show, to the lore of the Elnorians. This is not something that they've this is not something they established in any other show before, and I feel like it could have come up as useful in a lot of situations in the past if it was something that they could do. Like, I'm thinking of like when Guinan was was made a child, like and they were separated. She could have used this. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There are all kinds.
I think I kind of like the expansion of her abilities, though. Like I mean, it adds because I think what you didn't quite get from TNG is, well, you got the sense that the Q continuum are fearful of the Elnorians, but you don't get why, right? And I think this, like, sort of seeing this expansion of what Guinan can do, at least starts to get you closer to like, oh, all right, because okay, they listen well, but what what did they do, or why is Q so fearful of them? So that was an interesting moment, and I hope we see Guinan again, because it looks, at the end of the episode, it looks like they part ways.
I don't know. I think we'll see Guinan again. I don't think we'll see this actress again. We'll see Guinan when he goes back to the future.
Yeah.
And she won't remember any of this because this is a completely different timeline. So I think this is the last time we see this actress, though. Unless she's needed, like in the penultimate episode, to do something or another. But she does say like goodbye to him at the end of this episode. So the sense that I get is that we're not going to see this version of Guinan again. We're not going to see this version of Guinan again. So yeah. What else in this episode? We get some stuff with Soong. So the Kore. See if I can find that.
She figures out that she is a.
Well, she figured that out in the previous episode, but she actually confronts him in this episode, and goes back to what we were talking about a couple weeks ago, whether or not he actually loves her. And this is, like, as I suspected, the most evil version of Soong. Because he's like, yeah, I love my work, but I also love you. And it's like, yeah, you don't believe him. She doesn't believe him. He's not very convincing. And then we see what he does at the end of the episode, after the Borg Queen just whispers in his ears about his legacy. So yeah, he doesn't love her. So yeah, and Q, I don't really understand what Q's game is, though. Like, he gives her her freedom, right? There's no one else could have figured that out and given that to her because no one else has her on their radar besides Q. And as a matter of fact, he shows up in the virtual reality thing with the that glasses and he mentions the cure is there for her. So this I don't.
So that part for me, like, I also like Q. I mean, he obviously doesn't have all of his powers, right?
Right.
Like he
has all of his knowledge. He has all of his
have
knowledge, though. So like he has
his knowledge, right? But he got like the first time he gave Soong the formula to make the cure or whatever. Now this cure just shows up, and I'm guessing it's a permanent fix where the first batch was temporary.
Yeah. So what do you think his game here is? Why give this to her? Like because he failed in killing Picard or stopping Picard. That's why he's. It seems like a petty thing to do, but I guess petty for Q is not necessarily outside of his character. But yeah, like
right, Q. It's on brand and being petty, but like I don't know because like she stormed off, and I'm like, this kid is probably like she probably doesn't exist.
Right, she probably but
like no, there's no record of her birth. There's no record of her life. She makes a comment like, "Oh, I'm gonna call the cops," and I'm like,
tell him you are who exactly. So like,
right?
I mean, he would get in trouble, but like I don't know, she would be detained. And we're talking about 2024, so she's going to probably end up in a sanctuary city. But I don't know.
Yeah.
And
no sense of how the real world
a sanctuary district is what I meant to say. Yeah, she has no sense of. I mean, although her whole world was inside of that house, so even though it's not going to be easy for her, I can understand her choosing that. The unknown is preferable to what she has known for however many years she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be like, I don't know, 18, 20? What do you think? I forget. I can't get the sense.
Late teens, maybe.
Late teens? Okay. Yeah, so even though there's not even though she's going to have a hard time, I can understand her leaving. So yeah. Oh yeah. Then we get this flashback scene because like Jurati and Seven are fighting throughout this episode, and Seven confronts Jurati and says that you try to make people who you want them to be, and then we have this flashback with Elnor. He was apparently going to leave. He was going to leave.
Yeah. And go back to the
Quillat right.
So she's still blaming herself for his death, right? Because if he had left, then he wouldn't have been on the mission with them and wouldn't be dead.
Sure. I'm just like, the other thing about this though is that they keep making so many changes to the past. I don't think anything matters if their mission is successful, because like Rios is on the ship giving this kid cake. They told this guy they told this guy that he had an interaction with Vulcans. Like the Borg Queen killed a guy in an alley. I mean, you got to imagine that. I mean, he's important to someone, right? He might be important to history. She's like assimilating people, so like they gotta hope that their mission is successful, because all this stuff has to be retconned or taken out of history, because there's just too many changes. There's too many changes for them to account for now. So after this whole trip didn't happen because they stopped or they allowed the Europa trip to go forward or whatever, then I guess that would solve all these problems, because at this point I don't know how you would salvage the future with all the changes that they made. So like you said, even as something as small as giving that guy Was what organ, the French police officer who was like missing an organ or something,
Oh, they
a spleen or something.
I think it's spleen.
Yeah,
I think it's
that
spleen.
wasn't a thing
I mean, but I
that wasn't a thing that would have happened to him without their intervention. So even that small thing.
but there is like that urban myth of people like stealing organs, right? So he'll probably wake up in enough pain and maybe think like somebody stole his spleen, and or I don't know.
I would assume that
Or-
I would
or,
assume he
you know-
shouldn't he wouldn't grow he wouldn't wake up with pain. I would assume with their advanced medicine they could have healed him. But she couldn't save that organ. But later on, if he
Well, he'll find out the first time he gets an infection and he can't heal himself.
yeah yes what else was in this episode? So like there was the conversation with Elnor, like you said, that like we were talking about the conversation where she convinced Elnor to stay. So she's still guilty about that. And the conversation with Q. And Q shows up. So he shows up the very, very slow and analog way because he can't use any of his powers. So that conversation with Q was where we got some hints of what's happening with the overall plot. That's the only part of this episode where we got some hints about the plot. Let me see where that
He seems to be dying.
He seems to be dying. But he also said that, like, he snaps at her and he said that I didn't bring him back here. Like, yes, Picard made that decision, but you also took him out of. From our perspective, he made a decision to stop the Europa trip so that
Right.
Picard doesn't find what she's supposed to find on Europa. And you get a sense by the end that the Borg Queen also wants that screwed up history to happen as well. So I don't know what his deal is. I don't. Did you get a sense of what he's hinting at here? Besides the fact that he's dying.
Right.
Besides
I guess maybe somewhere in there is a way for him to not die, but I can't quite see like how any of this, how it helps Q really. Like I don't see
that either. Like he says, he said he doesn't have any power. He says he's trying to atomize her. She says this thing you're doing to Picard. It's how you're hoping to find meaning in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What does he mean by I now have a lifetime? Does he mean that he only has one lifetime because he's dying as opposed to eternity?
Maybe because a lifetime is is finite,
right?
There's an expectation that it will end.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he has to deal with that. It is curious, like to see Q so helpless and still meddling, but I don't feel any closer to understanding why. Because I'm guessing Picard didn't respond the way he wanted him to respond, I guess.
Yeah. So from this conversation, this is before she projects herself, and and this is where he says there's many forms of time travel, but he's trapped here. The trap is immaterial. The escape is that counts.
Yeah. Which makes me think that, because what Talon said at the end when she helped Picard like free himself from his mind, she's like, "There's more to this, right?" So there's I guess still something specific to Picard and his life that I think is probably key here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe they didn't need to come back to the past, but Q sent them to that dystopian alternate future or their alternate present, I guess. So yeah, so I guess we're still left with more
I
questions.
don't know. They have to make some of this stuff make sense, because they got to make. We're so close to the end of the season. Nothing makes sense. Like this whole conversation. I mean, we get that he's dying. I guess that's some more. But like in episode 2, we felt like something was wrong with him, right? Because he was so violent, and he was his eyes were bloodshot. And in episode 2, Picard says to the rest of the team before they escape that he seemed off. Something seemed to be wrong. So you could speculate all the way back into episode 2 that he was dying. But so I don't know. And also in episode, was it episode 3 or 4 where he tries to snap at Renee Picard, and nothing happens.
I think so.
Yeah.
We also don't. I guess is it the entire continuum? Is it just?
I think it's just. I can't. That's another thing that's not answered, right? She at the beginning of this conversation, she's like, "I know that you guys can kill each other, but I've never heard of you guys being able to die." So he's also very bitter that he's not getting, at this end stage of his life, he's not getting like new revelations about the universe. He compares his dying to like a dying star, which gets brighter, and he's just fading away, which I guess is why he's so anxious and so impatient with Picard in the second episode. So whatever he thinks he's doing will give his life meaning. Whatever he thinks he's doing will give his life meaning. He says maybe he's talking about Picard's lifetime. So like here when he says after this. Yeah, he said, "I now have a lifetime." So maybe he's talking about Picard's lifetime, like giving his life meaning. I don't know. Can a single act redeem a lifetime? I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about there. If he's talking about his life or he's talking about Picard's life, it's very unclear. And we're 2 episodes away from the end. I'm glad that they added him there, but that conversation just added more questions. It only answered one question, that he's dying. So I don't know. I don't know I don't know how to speculate based upon the very limited information they provided in that conversation. It just adds more confusion, really. And he's sort of speaking in riddles.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is Q, right? Q's never been the most
direct. Yeah.
Communicator.
But I feel like
even when his life is at stake.
Yeah, but I feel like if you're dying, maybe you might want to be more direct, right? I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. But anyway, we get to the end of the episode, and the Borg Queen is the other part of this episode where it was like the thing with the one off with the Vulcans, which makes it even more glaringly apparent that this detour had nothing to do with the entire season, is they get back to the bar and they hook up with Raffi and and Seven, and Raffi is like, "Where have you been?" And she's like, "I don't care." Well, it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where he was. That whole everything that happens to them doesn't matter. This is what's happening.
Raffi is like, she's so single-minded though.
Yeah.
She's just like, we are here, like, whatever. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, at the very end is where we see the soldiers being assimilated and the private army of Soong at the very end. I'm trying to think if we missed anything else from this episode.
I mean, Rios and the doctor again.
Yeah, that's just the stupidest part of the episode. I don't understand what she was saying about we've been married for 10 years and I want this one secret, and it's like
it was a very court cheesy way of trying to get him to tell her
something true. Okay,
something just more personal. It's true. Yeah, so she like set up this whole scenario of like because I guess people, but more as the longer you know people, I guess sometimes you find out surprising things about them only after you become really close. I guess. I mean, it was very convoluted.
Convoluted and cheesy, and he didn't even get to answer. Like he started to answer, and then they were interrupted, and then she turns around and kisses him like it's a telenovela. It was weird. Dropped in the middle of this episode, it was weird. It was, I don't understand what he's doing. He can't stay back there. Like, even if he...
No, and she's also talking, like, to saying, like, when you leave, right? So she also understands that this cannot go anywhere.
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't even think about... I mean, the kid is cute. The kid is still cute. It was like he said, "I want cake," and four different cakes, and he got cake. Yes. I mean, I like the kid. I like her. I just don't like what they're doing with them. I don't understand what the point is here. They actually had him and Jeri Ryan on what is it called? The Ready Room. And they talked about their two romances. Like, okay, the Raffi and Seven romance is interesting and actually has a future because even after when the timeline resets, they can be together. I don't understand why we're spending time with a romance with him and the doctor. I mean, he could just admire her without it being a romance because they're not.
Right, but no, but the which Star Trek movie, the one with the whales, didn't they take back the I don't know what you call a whale expert, but
no.
Go back with
no, she didn't. She didn't go back with them in the future. I think only the whale did. They wouldn't. Oh, they wouldn't have taken someone out of time. I don't think they would. I mean, that would have been irresponsible because. Who knows whose great grandmother they are? She is in their present. So, yeah. I don't know if he's related to her either. That might be another thing that will preclude him from moving her out of time. So
that's what I've been wondering. Like they're gonna find out she's like his great whatever grandmother or some crap like that. And then everybody's going to be like, you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And then I guess, end the episode with her assimilating people, like we said earlier. This is, of course, as I said, not what these guys signed up for. And this is all the things that they're going to have to fix with the timeline. Like these people have families too, and these people also could be the great-great-grandfathers and great-great-grandmothers of people in the future. So they can't just be assimilated Borg people now. So all this stuff has to be fixed. And the only way that it's fixed is if their mission is successful. But it's still unclear to me what their mission is. Like.
Yeah. No, they did. I just checked because I was like, I didn't make this up. they did take the doctor in back with them in the voyage home. So there's precedent for them fucking up
Are you
the
sure?
timeline. Yeah, she went back. I was like, yeah. Because I think part of it was also she's the only person who knew about, well, she was a whale expert. They didn't have any.
Did they have like
So
at
yeah,
least
they
a
took her
line
back
in
to their
there
own
saying that
time.
she died like a spinster and she had no heirs or something like that?
I don't know. Yeah, no, they don't mention that, but they take her back. So I mean,
I
maybe
don't.
he'll
Did they like
Dr.
did
Teresa.
they take her back
I mean, I hope.
and then send her? And she actually started to, and she actually lived in the future, or did they take her back just to communicate with the aliens?
She lived in the future. She stays. I mean, it's like at the end, so you don't really see like what um she's assigned to a science vessel by Starfleet.
Yeah,
I need to rewatch that. But I was like, yeah, they took her back. But yeah, because I guess she and Kirk had a thing, but they don't stay together. So
I don't know
I
that
guess
movie
there's
was
precedent
that
for
movie was
bringing
good,
people back from the
but I
past.
think that I think that movie was so good that you overlook stupid things like that because that's an incredibly
Yeah.
bad idea. um,
I mean, in her defense, I think she was on her way to like, I don't want to say spinsterhood, but she wasn't. She probably wasn't going to procreate in her time. So, because she wanted to, if I remember correctly, she like, wanted to go and help like protect the whales. So maybe they didn't screw it up in that sense. Like if she wasn't gonna, you know, go on and have kids, who knows? But yeah, I guess we'll see what they decide to do, or maybe Rios
yeah,
will
but it
stay
doesn't matter if
behind.
he stays behind. If they fix the timeline, they didn't go back in time. Like it'll mean that they never went back in time in the first place. Because that's the only way. That's the only way that they fix things. Like the Borg Queen assimilating people and killing people, and
Yeah,
the guy missing his spleen, and all the other things that they did when they were in the past. So if they fix the timeline, he never actually went back in time. Now, if this season was
mm-hmm.
as good as Star Trek 4, you would overlook that and be like, okay, that's stupid, but it's fine. But this season hasn't been that good, so it's going to be a glaring issue. Uh, if they leave him in the past, yeah.
We got a lot to fix.
So yeah,
Yeah,
this is what I was talking about here. They seem like they're saying goodbye here, and the next time we see Guinan, it's going to be Whoopi Goldberg,
yeah,
in the future. So I think they
yeah.
probably had her for a day or a few days. And they shot those scenes during that time. So it's interesting because they could have used her more because she's like, if you watch The View, she's like away for a month right now doing a movie, but I guess they didn't want to use her. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was kind of surprising.
Trying to see if there was anything else. Oh yeah, the conversation that Jurati Queen has with Soong. It kind of verifies that Renee is important, but it doesn't make sense that she would want that future to happen because in that future she's captured in the totalitarian version of Earth kills the collective unless she has her intention is to assimilate them now so they never do that and she's just lying to him. um I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the Borg Queen is not above deception, so she could just be lying to him to get what she wants and get. I mean, he provided her with a small army
Mm-hmm.
of mercenaries, so now she has
Right.
that she had before. So and clearly
Right.
like playing to his ego and delusions. So yeah, I don't see that being a
Yeah, she's
long-lasting
going to use him
partnership.
and discard him once she has what she needs. Or assimilate him, yes.
Or assimilate him.
But it does seem from this conversation, I mean, just putting the pieces together, the part of the past that she has about the archaeological find that Picard is going to make on Europa also matches up. Like she says that if she makes that find, it'll make you irrelevant. So I guess it is important, but it's not clear to me how it's important to the future. How does it change the future so much?
Right.
Is it that she doesn't make that find so that this guy is more important, and because this guy is so important and he's so evil, that's why it screws up the future? Is that the sense that you get from this? Like she says that the Earth, the Earth turns to him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they don't, because he's also, I think my read of that is he is like a brilliant scientist, right? He's a narcissist, and he's, you know, not well, but he's also
Right.
doing like brilliant things. And so if the Europa mission doesn't happen, like me, I guess my sense of that is like the things that he is doing, or he's the one who sort of transforms, leads a transformation, a technological transformation. But if the Europa mission is successful, that just completely dwarfs what he's doing. I think.
So she says here, Rene Picard either boards the spaceship and makes a discovery that renders your work obsolete, or doesn't. If she doesn't, I've seen the result. Earth in your time finds itself in an ecological free fall, and you're the man that they turn to.
Mm-hmm. So what she finds on Europa allows the Earth, you know, we correct the ecological mistakes that we've been
Yeah, but I
making.
feel like if they're turning to him, he's the man that they turn to. Why aren't like there more augments in the future? Why aren't there more? Because he doesn't care about the ethical issues around like augments and Soong, or maybe that's his line. He's creating humans out of whole cloth. He said he created her out of somatic cells, but like giving them superpowers or giving them super strength. That he has issues with that just because.
But then in his conversation,
Sir, say that.
in his conversation with her, like the failure rate is really high, right? It's like it's amazing technology, but it's not efficient. It's not working well because he was like the few dozen survived hours, right? And then months or whatever. So he went through a lot of clones, and also artificial gestation. I was like, that is amazing. Can we work on that? Like you don't need a surrogate, like a human being to gestate.
He would have had to make a lot of different technological and biological breakthroughs to make her and make it and keep it a secret as well. So like, yes, as you said, he's obviously brilliant. So
yeah, and not sharing it either. Like, so because some of that tech, I was like, this is stuff that people would want to like imagine, right? Like if somebody can't carry their own child, but you can artificially gestate an embryo, right? Like,
yeah,
that's freaking amazing. But he's using it to make his own humans that he created, like independent of like the cloning technology, right? So he's
Yeah, he's just
selfish.
interested. He's just interested in
He's not
he's
really
interested in his
interested in helping
legacy
humanity.
and that he's mostly interested in his legacy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how this ends, but it probably ends with him dead or assimilated at some point in the by the end of the season. Although, like I said, him dead means that there's no data. So what will likely happen is that he'll die, and then they'll succeed in their mission, and them succeeding in their mission will wipe out everything that happened in this entire season anyway. So he won't be dead. He'll just fade into obscurity, because without Q, I don't think that she ever leaves the house, and he never actually figures it out. He just has a kid, and that kid works on augments later on. So I don't know. It's interesting. I guess we'll see where he ends up next week in the penultimate episode. But they have a lot of things to tie up.
A lot.
And I don't know, maybe this random FBI agent will show up at some point next week, because this story had nothing to do with anything. So I don't know. It's also they are aware that the Vulcans are nearby. Why don't they enlist them? Communicate with them. Tell them what the issue is,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to be completely wiped out. I don't know. Maybe they think that the easier thing to do is to wipe out the humans, or stop them from advancing technologically. Maybe they won't actually maybe they won't actually help, because you got to think where they are in their evolution. They don't know who the humans are. They don't trust this future of a federation or whatever. That's not something that they would be necessarily interested in. So maybe
They've come back and like messed shit up. They're like, these humans are messy. They got to go. Which would not.
No, I don't think they would kill us, but they would definitely prevent us from advancing enough to actually get to space travel. I think that would probably be the most logical solution for them. Yeah.
Let us grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they can't communicate that far, right? With the Vulcans.
I gotta imagine that. that those Vulcans that he stumbled on in the 70s were communicating back to Vulcan, that they could get a signal. But yeah, I think it would just add extra complications to the mission, because there's just a lot that they would have to explain to the Vulcans about why the humans from this planet from the future are contacting them. So yeah. Anyway, as I said at the beginning, I think this was a good episode. It was an okay episode. It was a middle of the road episode, but like, this season in general is wearing on me a little bit. It's all over the place. I'm not sure how you're feeling about the season, but I think in general you've been liking the episodes a little bit more than I have.
I mean, last week was just kind of slow. This week I felt it picked up, and I was like, okay, we're going somewhere. I don't know how much closer we are to where we need to be,
or any answers whatsoever.
Moving, right? It just felt right. But it just had a lot more energy, I think, and more urgency. And yeah. And you don't see Talon.
Yeah, we don't see Talon, just like we didn't see Guinan in the last episode, except for the very not the last episode, the episode before last. We didn't see Guinan. We saw Guinan at the very end of the last episode, but she kind of just disappeared. But we're going to see Talon in the next episode, because the transporters are down, and apparently she has a transporter. So they need her to get back to the ship. So yeah.
And we still got to figure out what's going on with Picard because he seems to have some
Internal
unfinished
stuff. Yeah, I mean,
business,
and I feel like they're hinting at that
internal.
in this episode as well, saying that. I mean, there were a couple good lines here, even though I feel like the script for this episode was a little clunky, especially the stuff around the stuff that is completely irrelevant and had nothing to do with the season. There was a bunch of good lines written in that part with the alien, the Vulcan and stuff, specifically about humans living in the past, because they're trying to evolve, trying to better themselves. So I think that was also speaking specifically to his trauma, specifically him living in the past. So that's going to come up again in the future, in the next couple episodes, and we will see how that connects. But they're being unnecessarily cryptic because I don't think that they had enough material for 10 episodes. I feel like they have enough material for 6, and they're stretching. They're stretching with like
I mean, yeah, they're definitely stretching it out.
I don't even know if they had enough material for 6 because,
yeah.
like I said, they're just going on random tangents, like to make points. Like like they might have had enough material for 4, and they stretched it to 10.
It is making me wish that we'd seen more of that dystopian, the alternative future.
If they spent some more time there, it would have made this season a little bit better. That was actually my favorite episode of the season. They did a lot of world building there. If their plan to get away lasted 2 or 3 episodes, that would have been fine. It's a sci-fi show, so that would have been fine. They didn't need to go to the past because apparently the writers didn't have any ideas for the past. They didn't need to get to the past that quickly. Is what I meant to say.
No, they could have taken their time.
I don't know. I hope that they.
Because I mean, there was a lot there, right? Like seeing Seven as president of the Confederation. That like Picard, who is a genocidal maniac, apparently. Like, like that might have been interesting.
It would have been really interesting. Yeah, it would have been really interesting if they had. They could have stretched that out to 3 episodes, and I would have been okay with it before they figured out that they needed to go to the past, and then they spent a few episodes in the past, and then a few episodes with what they needed to do with the past, because the worst episode of the season I think was the gala, where they were basically just standing around doing nothing. They're like, most of the cast was like standing around, milling around, doing nothing. There was just like
but that FBI agent had them on camera.
They keep trying to pull in things from previous episodes where they were just spinning their wheels and saying, "Oh, it's important because of this." But this whole part, the only reason that it's important is because you write more stuff that's not important. Like the FBI agent is not important. The fact that Rios rattled off that he's from the future and everything. Okay, that sort of makes what happened to Rios is important, but that's only important not because it's important to the plot of the entire season. It's only important because you decided to write this random thing in this episode. So
yeah. I was actually surprised when Picard read that off. I was like, wait, that border agent, that ICE agent actually.
It's possible they were just recording. They were recording. They had cameras in the room, and they just and they took his statement. But yeah, it was verbatim what he said. And I don't know. I don't know that he wrote all that down. He didn't see that meticulous of a guy. So I assume that they
right. he also didn't seem to think he was.
Right.
He didn't think he was credible, right? Like it's just
Right.
like the rantings of a crazy person. So I was just like, oh, they actually. I mean, although I guess if they want to deport you,
Yeah.
that could be evidence that
maybe
you should, right? Like this person is, I don't know.
I feel like
Yeah.
they're going to continue to try to make weird decisions, story decisions that they made make sense by making more convoluted story decisions. Like the gala came up in this episode, and also the detention came up in this episode, and both of those things made no sense whatsoever in the season. And they'll continue to do that, I think, until the episode, the season is finished. I don't know. This is this season is kind of all over the place. I think the reason that I'm annoyed is because there's potential here for some good storytelling, and they've made a lot of weird decisions that are just meandering. It seems to me, and it's not even that it's like awful. It's just like weird and like mediocre in portions. Huh? Yeah. Anyway, that is what we think. You have any final thoughts or any predictions before we wrap up?
No, I guess I just really want more answers. Like, yeah, I just kind of want like to see. I mean, I'm hoping like these next 2 episodes are gonna be action packed, right? Because Jurati and her mercenaries are coming. So to see how they
need to be action packed. There was action in this. They actually there were stunt women that had to work with that Jurati scene with Raffi and stuff like that. I just need things to make. I just need things to make sense. So.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And like start to resolve stuff and see how like sorry.
Yeah.
I almost thought my dog was peeing on the floor. But he's fine. But yeah, like just see what's gonna happen. I mean, I almost wouldn't be surprised if they sort of left this hanging for season 3 in some respects. Because there is so much going on.
Maybe I mean they did shoot season 3, so maybe that's why we're frustrated, because we assume that they're going to wrap up season 2 and get back to the present, because they have all these people from they already announced that all these people from the Next Generation are going to show up in season 3. So I think a lot of people are assuming that it's going to be a completely different timeline. Sorry, a completely different storyline. But it's possible that they just will extend this story into season 3. I don't even know how I feel about that. If that's the case,
and because I feel like they're making like such a big mess that they can no longer contain it, maybe. Like I feel like it's getting to the point where you got to bring in.
But they're the only ones who have their memories, though.
I don't know.
That based on what Q did, he said I gave your crew their memories, but it was only the crew. Like, again, earlier in the season, it was like why are these people? But whatever. Unless he gave everyone their memories from the TNG, and they just left. They just left them in this dystopian future, and Picard didn't even think to scoop them up. So like, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the possibilities are endless.
Anyway, that is what we think, but we are interested to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below to join the conversation. Like and subscribe to get more content like this. And we will see you next time. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.